I think it's live.
Hey, I think you're right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. I'm super excited to be here with you today. One of the things is that we're in the month of October, and October, you tend to see a lot of pink everywhere. And the pink ribbons and shirts and colors and things like that you see very much represent kind of breast cancer awareness. And here at Carolina's Dental Health Center, we're very much about helping to support that, but also even taking a step further and focusing on prevention, because there are key things that people can do to prevent cancer and cancer recurrence. And I'm really excited because I have with us one of our amazing team members, Cheyenne, who's joining us to share a little bit about her story. And if you've been around our practice at any time in the last couple of years, most likely you've spoken with Cheyenne. And she's someone that plays a key role with us here in helping our members get started. She's also one of our health coaches. And so I'm thrilled that she was willing to join me and to share part of her story. So thank you so much for being here, Cheyenne.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah. I know breast cancer is typically not something that is on the mind of most teenage women. But that wasn't the case for you. So share a little about your background and your story.
Yeah, so I actually was diagnosed with breast cancer right at 18, about turning 19, my freshman year of college, and figured out something was a little bit wrong, had a little nodule in my breast that I felt, got checked out, didn't think anything of it, and actually had an ultrasound and was given the diagnosis pretty young, which was pretty shocking at the time.
Yeah, I can imagine it was. And so when you went through that, what were some of your initial thoughts?
You never really hear about kids my age having breast cancer at the time. I've always kind of thought of it with, women in their 50s or 60s, kind of after life and after kids. So I was kind of in disbelief. I thought maybe it was a misdiagnosis, maybe they got my results fixed, mixed up with someone else's. I definitely have heard a history in my family, but I never thought it would happen to me so young. So I think I was definitely in denial for a bit of time, but after a little bit, I was just like, wow, this is really happening. This is my life. So I kind of had to choose a direction and path of what I was going to do to kind of overcome that.
Yeah. And what were the medical professionals at the time recommending that you do in terms of treatment?
Yeah, so we actually did other testing after that and actually found out that I had the BRCA1 mutation gene, which also runs in my family. Did not know that at the time, but then we kind of later discovered that. So at the time, at 18, they were actually recommending a double mastectomy and rounds of radiation and chemo to actually remove the tumor, radiate lymph nodes if possible, and maybe further on, maybe a hysterectomy as well, just as a prevention. The BRCA gene actually, kind of changes your rates for getting breast cancer, but also ovarian cancer as well. So kind of a preemptive to make that not happen. They do recommend mastectomies as well as full hysterectomies.
Yeah, wow. Those are some pretty difficult and drastic decisions to make at such a young age.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, tough for anybody, but certainly something that would completely change kind of the course of your life and your future plans. So what did you end up doing?
Yeah, so at the time, I'd actually, my living situation just changed. I was adopted by two beautiful parents of mine, and they actually helped me kind of make the decision. And we opted for not doing the hysterectomy, most definitely not doing a mastectomy, but actually just doing a lumpectomy and removing the small tumor actually from my breast. And then, foregoing any recommendations for radiation or chemo, and then really just supporting my body naturally, working on, changing my diet, making sure all my micronutrients were doing well, but also working on managing stress, making sure I was getting outside and doing all the foundational pieces of health to really kind of help myself reset.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that, you had that influence in your life at that age to be able to make some really difficult decisions and sound like exactly what you needed. And how long ago was your diagnosis? And I know you shared some of the details of things you did in your life. I see, kind of what you choose to eat every day and some of the activities you do to maintain your health. But I'd love for you to share a little more about kind of how did you really kind of change your life to really reduce the risk of, another diagnosis?
Yeah, so starting 5 years ago, it wasn't easy because much like the people that we work with, I was 18, I was at college at UF, I was eating Chipotle every day for lunch. Burger King chicken fries were a favorite of mine. I loved sweet tea and I think
Don't
Bolt
forget.
House smoothies. Yeah, anything I could get a hold of, just as on the go. Definitely, fast foods, lots of toxic stuff in the food. I wasn't eating a lot of good fruits and vegetables. So at that time, definitely cutting out the fast food was the first step. We're learning to actually drink water. I had no idea how dehydrated I was as an 18-year-old. And working with my body to eat foods from a low anti-inflammatory standpoint. So mainly what I eat still today, 5 years later, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables. I don't consume a lot of processed foods, no sugars, for the most part. And I still kind of live up to that today. And then, juicing, making smoothies every day, making sure I'm drinking my water, getting outside and taking supplements to support my overall health.
Yeah, awesome. And I can truly attest to that. Cheyenne definitely walks the talk around here when it comes to her diet and lifestyle choices. So, when it comes this time of year, October, and you tend to see the pink ribbons around, it really kind of hits close to home, doesn't
Yeah, most definitely. And with that being said too, it's not something that everyone thinks about for women so young. So I'm so honored to be able to represent people that are my age because it's actually more common than you think. I don't think it's mainly talked about, but it's also really cool to get to share with people in our members that we're working with who may have just experienced it or have a new diagnosis, that there is more of a natural way to kind of overcome that and reset your body from an overall state.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what can you share with parents of teenage girls and or even women who may have the BRCA gene mutation, and women in general about kind of their journey?
Yeah, so especially for the parents, you actually lead an example for the kids. I can remember, being 16 and my parents trying to get me to eat fruits and vegetables and me, detesting anything possible. So it was really their example of just, watching them every day, taking care of their health and making that a priority that led me down that right path. So, for the parents, be sure that you are showing up for your kids and try to, you don't necessarily have to go down the direction of the medical recommendations. Really figure out what's best for your family and for your daughter or son, depending on what the issue is, to make those changes. But also for young women too, just because you have a certain gene mutation doesn't mean you're doomed forever. You can definitely kind of turn genes off, and some don't even have to be activated if you're making the right decision. So I'm so honored to have kind of this wake up call at 18, 19 years old whenever it happened. And whenever it does happen to you, you can always kind of turn your life around with your health. It's never too late or too early to get started, but definitely if you are in the younger variety, making the changes earlier can definitely help long-term as well.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And it's one of those things that I always say to people too, because I think too often we give our genes too much credit, like, oh, I just have this, I'm going to end up with this disease. But it doesn't have to happen that way. And you kind of touched on that, where we do have the ability through our diet and lifestyle choices to really turn on our good genes and turn off our bad genes. And it's in more of our control than most people realize. And you're a clear example of that. So it's awesome to see. Well, I can't thank you enough for being so courageous to share your story. And I know it's going to change someone's life. Thanks for your time today.
Of course. Well, thanks so much. And I look forward to talking with any of you guys about it as well, if you guys have further questions.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Cheyenne.